Hello, and thank you for joining us today in our study of the book of Psalms. Today we come to Psalm 58. And in this psalm, you have a psalm of David that is very much in some ways a psalm of vengeance and a psalm of justice in the way that it is described. There's going to be some stronger language from the standpoint of his view of the wicked and his desire for God's response to the wicked than oftentimes we see in the other Psalms of David. So let's look at what is found in Psalm 58. Beginning in verse 1, we read, "Do you indeed speak righteousness, you silent ones? Do you judge uprightly, you sons of men? No, in heart you work wickedness. You weigh out the violence of your hands in the earth. The wicked are estranged from the womb. They go astray as soon as they are born, speaking lies. Their poison is like the poison of a serpent. They are like the deaf cobra that stops its ears, which will not hear the voice of charmers, charming ever so skillfully. Break their teeth in their mouth, O God. Break out the fangs of the young lions, O Lord. Let them flow away as waters which run continually. When he bends his bow, let his arrows be as if cut in pieces. Let them be like a snail which melts away as it goes, like a stillborn child of a woman, that they may not seize the sun. Before your pots can feel the burning thorns, he shall take them away as with a whirlwind, as in his living and burning wrath. The righteous shall rejoice when he sees the vengeance. He shall wash his feet in the blood of the wicked, so that men will say, surely there is a reward for the righteous. Surely he is God who judges in the earth. Again, this one is not one of those softer toned, melancholy type of psalms. This is almost uh, a war type of psalm in its voice and in its presence. But I want to look at a couple of different things from this psalm as we see some lessons and some statements that are being made here. The first one is you have this statement that's made in verse 3 that the wicked are estranged from the womb. They go astray as soon as they are born, speaking lies. David is not here arguing that people are born wicked and therefore they don't have a choice. They're just going to be what they're going to be. Rather, he's using poetic language to say that from the very beginning of the things that they do and of the choices that they make the wrong choice. Notice the last part of verse 3 says, they go astray as soon as they are born, speaking lies. Well, it's impossible for a child to begin speaking lies the moment they are born. We're not talking about something literal here. What we are talking about is the way that they've been raised, the way that they've been trained, the way that they've been allowed to be from the time that they were little children. They've been expected to live their lives this way. And remember that you're dealing with multiple different cultures and heritages and all of these various kinds of things. Many of the nations around refuse to acknowledge God, and in such they teach standards and they teach ethics or lack thereof that go completely against what God says. They worship gods that require practices that are evil and abhorrent. And so David here is talking about from the heart they work wickedness, but that wickedness is something that is ingrained in them from the time they're born. It's not a matter of they simply make a bad choice or two here or there. This is the part of the training that they have from the very outset. This is how they're raised to be. And so you have this statement in verse 4 that their poison is like the poison of a serpent, and they are like the deaf cobra that stops its ears, that won't hear the charmer. In other words, they're not going to change. They're not going to listen to anything else that is said or anything that anyone tries to teach them or tries to say to them to help them, because this is the way they've been raised to be, and they're not going to listen to anything else. These are a people that cannot be reasoned with. These type of wicked are ones you can't talk out of their wickedness. They're going to act this way until the end of their life, and they're going to refuse to make any changes to their lives. We're talking about a specific group of individuals. We're not talking about all people who do bad things or all people that make wrong choices. David here is talking about a very specific group of individuals. And this psalm is pointed toward those who are deeply wicked, they are deeply hateful, and they refuse to change. They've been raised this way from the time they were born to act in these ways and to do these things, and they refuse to listen to anybody. And so here at the end of the psalm, in the latter half of the psalm, David is calling upon God to bring his judgment upon them. And while this is going to seem like it's going to be a very violent response, and it is going to be a violent response as far as that goes, it's going to be the only response left to Israel to deal with the wickedness of these individuals, because they're not going to stop until somebody stops them. They're not going to change on their own. They're not going to listen to reason. They're not going to all of a sudden wake up one morning and feel like doing good. The only thing that's going to stop them is if God stops them. And the only way that he will be able to do that is violently. And so you have the statements of verse 10, where he says that the righteous shall rejoice when he sees the vengeance. Now, very important point to bring out here is the fact that this vengeance is not the vengeance of the righteous. This vengeance is not the vengeance of man taking matters into his own hands and dealing with things himself, but rather it is the vengeance that God brings upon the wicked for their deeds. The righteous rejoices when he sees the vengeance of God. Because, he says, verse 11, so that man will say, surely there is a reward for the righteous. Surely he is God who judges in the earth. In other words, God will take care of things in the end. He will be the righteous judge, and the righteous who continues to do what is right will win in the end. This psalm is a psalm of David dealing with those who cannot be reasoned with, who have no desire to do what is right, who have no desire to act in such a way that the righteous would act. And ultimately, God is the only one, David says, who can deal with these individuals, and he will. And when he does, the righteous will rejoice, not at the fact that those people had to be dealt with, but in the fact that God will recognize and uphold what is right, and that the righteous are going to be able to have all of the things that God promised because they've done what was right at all times, even in their response to the wicked. Notice nowhere in this psalm does David talk about the righteous individual going out and doing things himself, or going out and taking matters into his own hands. But rather he talks about God's justice and God's vengeance. And that's the point that we need to take away from all of this, is the fact that God is the righteous judge. and that God is going to deal with the wicked in his judgment. And he will reward the righteous in his judgment. And those are the things that I see here in Psalm 58. I hope that they are things that have been beneficial to you. Next time, we're going to come back and we'll look at Psalm 59. I hope that you'll join us then. Thank you for watching today. And until next time, have a great day.